Welcome, trippers, to another episode of Tripping Through Transformation. I'm your host, Guillaume Poirier. And with me today, I've got Ed McAndrew, or Sub60Ed as he goes by. You'll soon discover that although Ed may be short in stature, he's making a big impact on men's mental health and suicide prevention through his work with NGBN and as well as the co-host and producer of the Decades podcast. So without further ado, let's get us started. So balance, drop the beat, my friend.
Balance makes it bang.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This is great. Hey, I was bouncing. I was beating out to that intro. Loved it. That was some good stuff, man.
I appreciate it. I'm sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you for the kind words in your opening. That was very nice of you, trying to do what I can.
Yeah, well, I think that's we're all doing what we can at NGBN. We're not,
Yeah.
we're not professionals, but we're all doing our part. And yeah, you're doing amazing work. I love Decades and what you guys got going on over there.
Thank you, sir. We love putting it on. It's a good bunch of people, and it's we're still learning. We're still trying to make it better, but make sure hopefully everybody can check it out on the NGBN network. Great time.
So that's your Decade shirt you're wearing there, eh? With the "I'm not that guy, I'm Sub60Ed."
Yes, that is my Decade shirt, courtesy of Chris Rubio. Yes, Chris Rubio. If you don't know, as you know, and maybe your listeners don't, Chris Rubio is the host of Decades and the host of the Rubio Method, plus Rubio Long Snapping. He's the president and owner. Yes, this was a kind of this was the answer to a funny story that I told him about always being mistaken for other little people. As you mentioned, as you mentioned in the opening, I'm short in stature.
Right.
So sub 60 refers to being under 5 foot, 60 inches being 5 foot. I'm 4'2" now, which means I've shrunk a little bit as I've gotten older, Guy. That's what you have to look forward to as well. So no, I shared. Yes, I have actually shared. I shared with Chris Rubio and Charles Wallace a story about being mistaken for some of the more famous little people that are out there. First and foremost, Jason Acuna, aka Wee Man from the Jackass movies. Yeah, and I was just recently mistaken for somebody else, and I shared it with Rubio, and he thought it would be funny to say, no, I'm not that. Before they even ask, they say, no, I'm not that guy. I'm Sub60Ed. And then we have a little bit of a promotional on the back where I've got my Decades logo on the back. See it. So
very nice.
So yes, so it's good. We have a good time between he and I, and I'm kind of. I've kind of gone to being the title of your show, Tripping Transformations, kind of when I really thought about it and when you asked me to be on it, I thought about it more, and it's kind of, I've been going through a transformation over the past year since about October, August, September, October of last year.
Yeah.
And that's about the same time I started getting involved with the NGBN family and kind of leaning back into who I was. So.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm going to touch on your journey with NGBN, but I want to stick with that shirt for now. So,
okay,
Sub60Ed, how did that come about? Was that Rubio's idea?
No, you're going to make me have to give him credit again, and he's going to see.
We don't want to do that.
Right, exactly. It's going to make me throw up in my mouth a little bit, but yes, it was his idea, and if I recall I have to give the guy credit. He is somewhat creative. Again, just kind of cringed a little bit. He's creative, and my understanding is he knew a sub 60 before when he was growing up as a young man, and then our lives, cross, and we become friends and so on. And he just started calling me that, and people I've gotten questions. What is Sub60Ed? does not bother you. So, we've had questions come in on the show, and I'll 100% honest, and, and Chris is a good guy. He really is. He's a good guy. And he when I was thinking about it, I've had some good nicknames, but this is a nickname that is it's kind of mild, but it's to the point. Right. I am, if you look at the nickname Sub60, I am Sub60. I'm shorter than 5 foot. My name is Ed, Sub60Ed. Right. I mean, I've been called like Cash Money, Easy E, things like that. Just kind of through college, I've been called, Eddie Spaghetti growing up. My grandmother used to call my middle name's Dennis. She used to call me Eddie Dennis, things like that. And, and all this, it's, some of those, nicknames are kind of cringeworthy now. Not cringeworthy. I mean, they're cute, but no. But this one kind of it kind of took, and I kind of went with it. And, he goes by Rubio. He goes by his last name.
Right.
And, more and more people, you go by Guy. Charles Wallace, our friend as well, and author, goes by, Rubio's kind of our nickname king. He kind of blesses people with them, calls him Chalice, combination between Charles Wallace. So it was, it's in good natured fun. And, people see us ribbing one another or see him kind of getting on me about my size. I get on him about his yellow shirts and stuff. And, we do because we know each other can take it. And it's always we always come from a place of fun. I'm going to use the term love, friendship, brotherhood.
Yeah.
Than anything else. I know deep down, like, what kind of good guy and where Chris comes from.
Yeah. He's coming from a good place.
Right. Exactly. I know. We've met once when I was in Vegas for a conference, once for about 10 minutes. But I know if I called him up or if he called me up and we need something, he'd be there for me. Yeah. That's the kind of brotherhood that, and then we also have some sisters that are involved. So I don't want to leave them out. But in this whole NGBN TV network movement that we're doing, we're beginning to advocate for men's mental health and so on, which is important. Because we're all affected by it. We were even on decades, we were affected by it firsthand.
Yeah, with James, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you're able to, let people kind of not really poke fun at you, but come up with these names and, you take it with, lightheartedly. When you're talking about how people go up to you and they think that, you're Wee Man from Jackass, I think that's great. I love Jackass. I just think it's unfortunate that you don't look more like Peter Dinklage because you might have more career opportunities with Game of Thrones and whatnot, right?
Yes, exactly, right. No, I just tell people, if people ever ask me, I said, I'm like Peter Dinklage except a better actor.
There you go.
So that's my tag. That's a new tagline I'm going to make. But no, the funny thing is when as I've mentioned, I think you and I have talked before. I traveled a lot for my career, and a lot of these conversations would happen in the airport, where people are sometimes looking for the celebrity, and there's not many little people in the world, and that's a fact. There's only about 100-some thousand in the U.S. alone. So if you take that against the population, anyway, so I would say, I'd kind of say, oh no, I'm not. I just look like him. I get it all, stuff like that. And you can almost see the person kind of, as I walk away or they walk away. Yeah, sure, he's not. He's just, he's just not wanting to spend time with me or whatever.
Right.
So it's kind of funny like that.
So I want to ask you another thing, because another story you told me was that, and I'm going to butcher this word, you were a Coxswain?
Yes, a coxswain. Yes, a coxswain on a women's St. Joe's University women's lightweight 8 when St. Joe's University up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, go Hawks.
Yeah.
Was still a club sport.
Yeah.
It was a club sport, and it's now on both the men's and the women's side. It's a a Division One program, and is an elite Division One program at that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had to look up what it was. And then when I see the pictures, you see all the rowers have their backs turned and the coxswain is facing the other way and kind of guiding the boat, right? So I'm picturing somebody on the drum, like banging to keep the rhythm and shouting orders like, row, row, row. Is that what you have to do?
No. That's the misnomer. It's not about shouting row, row, row. It's about, it's about steering the boat,
right?
Keeping the shell in line, because it's an art almost, to be honest with you. And it takes skill, because you have to, a small adjustment goes a long way, but it's more of keeping all 8 oars in sync.
Right.
You are kind of like, if you think of it, almost like a maestro conducting an orchestra, has to keep all the instruments in tune and in sync, because if one of the oars is out, let's say the oar is hitting the water too soon, it throws the whole boat off.
You don't want to be going in circles.
You could, or as we have an alumni group that I've been involved with, and I've gotten actually back out in the water about 2 years ago. I was back in the boat for the first time in like 30 years. And we had a boat, and we had one of the we didn't have it. We didn't have it seated actually correctly, and we had too much strength pulling on one side. So you have 4 on the left, and then 4, and then you have 4 on the right side, and you have to make sure that the power is balanced throughout the boat, because if you have more power on the left than right, or port to starboard, you have a issue.
Right.
Then you are potentially making a left turn, or you're making a right turn, and the key is to go down the river. So
how did you get involved in this? Like, did you approach them? Did they approach you? And if you're a man on a woman's team, is it just based on weight then, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, that's they actually approached me back this is back in the early 80s, like 84, when I was a freshman in college. I'm sorry, 87. And they were looking. I think one of their coxswain was either sick or was struggling to make weight. Well, you have to be a certain weight, and one of the issues is if I recall correctly. Now, Guy, please bear with me. This is a long time ago. All right. So the girl was almost too light at that point, and if she's too light, you have to sandbag the boat. So you have dead weight. So it's dead weight in the boat, and that is actually, you would rather have live weight, which is a person sitting in the boat, than dead weight. It's easier.
Is that so they can shift their weight around? Or?
Yes. Yeah, and it's just and the way it's dispersed and so on, because like a sandbag is going to sit on a boat like this, where a person will be sitting like up in the seat.
Right.
So that's how I got started. Now, in my freshman year, I was about being involved in everything. I was a manager on the men's basketball team. I was doing this. I was doing that. I was in college. Let's say I was in college for the fun, and when I first started, until I got focused, I was there for the extracurriculars. And somebody came up and said, "Hey, you want to do this?" I was like, "Sure, why not? I've never done it before." So that's kind of how I got into it. And being a coxswain's a lot more than just steering a boat. It's kind of, you're like the coach on the water.
Right. Yeah.
You're also given the instructions to put the boat into the water, to bring the boat out of the water. You need to make sure they all, like I said, they're all in a line. You steer the boat, which means you have to take into the weather, the wind, the current, other boats around you.
Yeah.
If you're racing. So
sounds like an adventure anyway. It sounds like an experience that you had. It sounds like I learned a lot.
I really enjoy it. And like I said, we've gotten involved with the St. Joe's current team. It's really nice. Even as a Division I program, they still, kind of recognize us as alumni. We were there before, the whole program went somewhere. Became a full Division I program. We have our own boat. St. Joe's has its own boathouse now that they let us when we have like an alumni reunion.
Nice.
And like I said, if you're ever up in you or any of your listeners are up in the Philadelphia area, down in Fairmount Park, Boathouse Row, along the Schuylkill Rivers, where rowing is a big sport up in Philadelphia.
Okay.
A lot of that, and it's is very historic. And if you Google Boathouse Row, Philadelphia, you'll see it's really kind of neat. It's something that you don't like you don't see it in the suburbs.
No.
So.
Yeah, it's got to be something. I have no experience with rowing or boating or anything like that, but it sounds like something different for sure.
It's great exercise. The elite rowers are considered elite athletes.
Oh, I believe you. Yeah.
If you ever want to get a taste of what it's like, go to the gym and get on a erg machine or a rowing machine.
Yeah.
And try to do 2,000 meters. An elite Division I rower does 2,000 meters in about 6.5 minutes, maybe a little less now.
Okay.
I
can't even relate to that. I don't even know what that looks like.
You being in Canada, you know what the 2,000 meters looks like, right?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So imagine yourself getting in a boat and rowing 2,000 meters in 6 minutes.
Yeah, it'd probably take me 15 minutes to walk that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the whole point. Anyway, but no, it was a fun time. It was something different, something I had no exposure to or experience of prior.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you mentioned that it's something that you had no experience in. And, this opportunity came to you and you said, I'm going to take it. Because I keep preaching, put yourself out there, try new things.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you did. And this kind of leads me to what we're going to discuss shortly here. And that's, your journey with NGBN and Decades, which is another opportunity. Yeah. So we'll actually take a quick break to share some news about NGBN. And then when we come back, I'm going to ask you about your NGBN journey and Decades.
Sounds great.
All right, man. We'll be right back, guys, after a quick break from NGBN.
This is NGBN TV, a network for men and home to top experts, speakers, authors, and more. Streaming TV for men, created by men.
But why?
Why are we a network that inspires,
educates, entertains, celebrates, and supports
men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, simply to save men's lives?
There is an epidemic in our community,
and it's taking men from us.
I'm talking about mental health and suicide.
But we have an answer, and it's streaming, live shows, sports, concerts, and more.
In a real way for men to lock shields.
We can't wait to launch this TV network for you and with you.
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 Join our movement at ngbn.tv, coming January 2024.
All right, Trippers. Well, welcome back. A couple familiar faces in that commercial, Ed.
Yeah. Hey, I gotta say, Guy, I need to apologize to you that you have to run that on your show, because that was not one of my best recordings at all. I don't know what I was trying to pull off. I think I was actually trying too hard. At that point where, there are people that think that they get the message, but I'm like too serious. I was trying to find that happy middle.
Yeah.
Serious and that. And I was, you look nice and relaxed. I look like I'm uptight and like, we got to lock shields. It's like, I don't know. Yes. Yeah. I get rid the panelists in the Decades cast like to remind me of that, because we air that same commercial on the show.
Yeah.
And they like to remind me about how good that is. So
they like to make fun.
And I see it's funny, yeah. And I can see Jenna laughing in the background because so but it's all right. It's all good. You know what? If it helps spread the message because people want to see it because of that, I'm okay. See, it's about spreading the message. It's about getting us out there. It's about saving men's lives, as Ian says, as we kind of go across. So whatever it takes.
And none of us are professionals. We're just doing this because we believe in the message and what we're trying to.
Amen.
So, if looking foolish is part of the game, oh, well, let's look foolish, but we're saving people in the process. So,
hey, I hit a home run. I'm foolish. I'm good at that. Not good at many things. Acting foolish, I am.
So, yeah, I wanted to touch a bit on your NGBN journey because when you and I talked briefly, before the show, and when I was listening to your story, I was getting goosebumps and I was getting emotional. Like I was starting to tear up because my NGBN journey has been a bit mysterious. There's a lot of times when I was like, what the hell's going on here? There's more than meets the eye. There's more of the surface. And then you're talking and it sounds like you're having the same feelings. So tell me a bit more about your NGBN journey, how it came about. How did you join NGBN?
It's an interesting story, and Ian likes to refer to it often. It was, it's about a year ago, about a year, maybe 13 months now, 14 months. I was, it's kind of been into a new job. So that was all cool. And I've been going through, like I said, you're tripping through transformation is really good because transformation, I'm kind of going through that myself. I was going through that myself. One of the things I was going through is I had hit a part in my life where, I was struggling with accepting of who I was, of my sub-60ness. I had kind of I had lost that. I had embraced it for a while in my younger days, and I seemed to have lost it. Also, I was looking for something to kind of give back more. I thought I had more to do. Toyed around with a podcast. I said, I don't even know what to do with that. Maybe, I don't know. And I just was on LinkedIn, and I saw a post by Charles Wallace, who's the host of the Bear Essentials on the NGBN network. And he had a post that kind of resonated with me. I don't remember what it was, but what I do remember is that he was wearing a shirt that was said, "Keep moving forward." And it's a shirt from the Till Valhalla Project, which is a charity that makes placards for fallen veterans for their families. And one of the ways they raise money is to sell these shirts. I've got about 7 or 8 of them in my possession, but I have that one that Charles has. So I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, man, I like what you're doing. Hey, I love your shirt. Got one myself." So that kind of started the ball rolling. And I started to comment. I was also, back a year ago, I was one of those guys, or one of those people, I should say, that I can't say, I need to be careful what I say. I don't want to, I don't want people to judge me. I don't want people to be upset with me. I'm not going to kind of share who I am. I'm not going to be vulnerable. So I started with kind of reaching out to Charles. It kind of started me kind of posting very simple stuff. And in October is Dwarfism Awareness Month. And so I posted something about that. And I kind of in my acceptance process, posting on LinkedIn was kind of my way of kind of journalizing what I was trying to do. It was reminders to me, and it was trying to share with other people. It was, to kind of see what's out there, to let people know what's out there, because, you see some little people on LinkedIn, but they're not active posters. It's, just kind of share, hey. And I'm not one of these, hey, beat the drum activity, give us equal rights or whatever. I just want people to know, we're just like everybody else. We're just a smaller version type thing.
Right.
So I posted that, and Chris Rubio saw it, and Chris Rubio and Charles were all part of the NGBN network. So, and Chris started seeing some of the stuff I was posting. He started, he started commenting. He saw my post about, Dwarfism Awareness. He asked me then to be on the Rubio method because, he's like, I want to kind of clear up, like, what's the right term? Midget, dwarf, little person, whatever.
Yeah.
And if you know Chris, you know how he said it, because he said it kind of like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if you go back and watch that episode, I think that's how he starts it out. He says, Ed, so let's get to the point. What is it? Is it midget, dwarf, whatever? What do you call me? And I think my response to him is, why don't you just call me Ed?
Right.
And, Chris and I really didn't know each other that well at that point, but really it was just kind of I think in society today we try to put names on things that we don't need to put names on. We're all people. So that started our connection, and then that started the conversation. The conversation about decades had been in works prior to my kind of me starting to work my way into the group. Actually, no, I jumped ahead. Then after a while, I saw Ian. I had connected with Ian. I started connecting with that Chris Fontana was also one of the early people that I connected with. Talked to him. He was big into, he does the working out, he does all that stuff. So I kind of connected with him because my preference is to work out, 7 days a week. If I get 4 to 5 in, that's a win for me. That's because the gyms is kind of my happy place. So I saw a post from Ian come in. And he was looking for, I don't know, he said, if you have experience in A, B, and C. And I said, you know what, Ian, I replied to it. I said, you know what, I don't have that experience. However, I'm a little person. I have an interesting perspective on life.
Right.
And I sent him that message, and he messaged me back. He goes, let's talk. And so we talked, and then that's where it kind of started to blossom. I became, I did some onboarding, kind of started walking through, kind of started growing in my posts, started getting, more involved, then we started talking as I was kind of kind of just continuing to, kind of talk to people. Decades had been something that had been in the works. Back when we started Decades, this was where, if people had different opinions, everybody was yelling at each other. Nobody was communicating in society anymore. It was all, you either agreed with me or I hated you. So the whole Decades premise was going to be, hey, let's do, it's guys coming together, may have different opinions, but we agree to disagree.
Oh, that's great. So is that kind of the premise of Decades then?
That's yeah, it's kind of morphed into a little, it's actually, that was what we had in the first season. We've kind of tweaked it a little bit. This season, we're now live. We're trying to do every episode live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, running on the ngbn.tv website, streaming. We're trying to do like 3 fun and then three kind of fun topics, and then one kind of maybe a little bit more spicy.
Yeah.
And, and still we can agree to disagree and do it in that fashion. And what we do is at the end of the show, I pick the panelists of the show based on whatever criteria I desire. But the only criteria between you and me, we won't tell anybody this, that never changes, is that Chris Rubio can never get it.
Okay.
So don't tell anybody that, all right?
It's safe here. It's safe.
Exactly. So we do that, and then we have a toast at the end. Chris will call it up, and we'll say, we cheers to one another. And that's how guys used to be. You could fight things out, you could argue things out, but it didn't matter. At the end, you were buddies. Now, Chris and Rubio and I don't agree on, we have different viewpoints on a lot of different things, but we enjoy hanging out with each other and stuff like that. So that's the whole premise of the show, really. And that's kind of, Chris couldn't do both shows. So that's where Ian asked me, because you want to engineer the show. And I'm like, drive a train? I don't know how to drive a train.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And he's like, no. And I said, sure. Again, I go back to, I'm like, I'll give it a shot. Sure. I don't know. I've never done it. So we came, this is how kind of StreamYard was. He said, let's do StreamYard. I'm like, fine. We started doing we did some dry runs of Decades just to kind of figure out how the show was going to run. That's how I taught myself StreamYard. And then, I have a system. I've worked with systems through my career, so I have an idea of how things work and where things hide. So I did that. And, one episode, led to 2, led to 4, led to us doing it taping it real time, and then next thing you know, we're done season 1, and it's been 26 episodes in. And if you really think about it, we had a transformational season in the sense, as you stated earlier, we lost Jim Gingrich, may he rest in peace. He took his own life. I mean, and that kind of brings home the whole message. So, on how all of our shows, are fun, are educational, are whatever. But at the end of the day, we don't lose sight of what our mission is, and that, there's a guy out there or a person that's struggling, and we get you, we hear you, and you're worth the time. So, and then Ian said, I have a business background, consulting background, accounting background. He said, asked me if I'd be on the leadership group, and I'm like, I struggle saying no, and I'm like, sure, yeah, let's do that too.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like getting back to your original, and that was kind of my journey. But what I didn't know was I found something I wasn't necessarily looking for.
Yeah.
It kind of came to me.
Right.
If I don't see, if I don't see Charles Wallace, here's the thing: if Charles Wallace is not wearing that shirt in that picture for, the Bare Essentials, do I interact with him? And what's interesting is that those kind of reach outs for me were outside of my comfort zone. That's not really something I was really at that point into doing. But I said, if you're, it's we say it all the time. If you want change, you have to do something different. You can't keep doing the same thing. Doesn't matter who you are.
100%.
Yeah.
What I really love, Ed, is that, we never know what's going to have an impact on others. So for you, it was Charles Wallace's shirt that caught your eye, but then you also made the effort of reaching out to him, and that's led to something that has now grown into something bigger than you could have ever imagined, right? And it was just the unknown. Charles' post that he didn't know what impact it was going to have, and your action, you didn't know what was going to come out of it, and boom,
right.
Now you're on Rubio's podcast as a guest, and then you're on Decades as a producer. You're part of NGBN leadership team. Like, there's just it just came from you taking that one little action.
And right, and that's if anybody watching your show takes anything away from this, is that's the thing. Your next big thing is one question or one comment, one thing away, and it really is. I mean, it's sometimes you read this, you read stuff and you're like, it's just somebody giving lip service. But no, if you really think about it, since we don't know what's coming next, we have to live in the present. We have to act on the present. That's what we get. And then it's like, there we go. And here we are. Now I'm talking to you. Talking to you, your show's up and running, tripping through transformation. I trip a lot. I transform. So it just made sense.
Yeah. Well, just to reinforce the message and to kind of let you know why I was getting so emotional and getting goosebumps and tearing up when you were sharing your stories, because mine is very similar. Like, Ian sent me an invite. I didn't know who Ian was. I saw his video and I left a comment. I said, hey, man, I love your video. I don't know anything about you except this video, but I feel like I could learn a lot. And that led to a meeting. And then the next thing I saw was a post by Charles Wallace as well, where I think he was actually launching his podcast and he was looking for guests. And I think he said, like, are you a public speaker? Are you a leader? Are you this and that? And I wrote him back and I said, I'm none of those things now, but I'm working on it. And maybe when the time's appropriate, I could be on your podcast. And that led to, me connecting with the guys from NGBN and having meetings and taking courses. And after like a year or so, I just told Ian straight up, I was like, Ian, I want to be a part of this. Like, I believe in what you're doing and I don't want to just be on the sidelines anymore. I want to be involved. And next thing you know, he said, well, do you want to have a podcast? And I was like, oh, a podcast? I don't like talking to people. I'm kind of a recluse for most of my life, like not many friends. And now you want me to put myself in the world, right? But that's what I did and that's what you're doing and it's working. So the proof's in the pudding.
Well, let me say this, Guy. you do not come off as a recluse or a person without many friends or somebody who does not interact well with the public. You are, like I said to you, I think the other day when we were talking about the podcast, I know a lot of people do this, but only a few do it well, and I think you do it really well. You're very articulate. You want to, you care about it. You want to get it right, and you're crushing. Like I said, Charles and I talked about it. This guy was he was like, oh, I can't do this. I'm gonna suck, and you're crushing it. And we're like, yeah, all right, go Gee.
Well, it's all about getting better. Because if I look back at my first episode, I was really uncomfortable. I didn't know what I was doing. But every episode gets a little bit better, and I'm confident that I will be crushing it in no time.
Oh yeah, you're exactly right, and that's how we have to look at things as failures are just missteps or failures or mistakes are just opportunities to get better.
Yeah, and then if you want something new in your life, you have to be willing to try something new, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's there are a lot of people in my life that I know they're comfortable doing what they do and stuff like that. And you know what? That's cool. If that's your life, I work very hard not to judge people on their choices and what they do because that's their life. Yeah. It's not my place to put my beliefs on somebody else. If you don't believe what I do, let me clarify that in case anybody watches. Well, what happens if I'm an axe murderer or homicidal maniac? Well, I got a problem with you. But if you just have a different religious belief, you like the Dallas Cowboys, I don't like the Cowboys, I like the Redskins. It's kind of like that. So it's just, and I think we need more of that. Yes, I was just about to say, you beat me to it. Yes, we need more acceptance than judgment. There's too much judgment today.
Yeah, more.
We judge before knowing.
Yeah, one thing I've definitely learned is that everybody's lives are so different because we all grew up in such different environments and had such different experiences. I really can't judge anybody because I didn't live their life. So, had I experienced what they experienced, I might be that person too that I'm judging. So,
that's right. No, you're 100%. And the more, I made a post today on LinkedIn about how it just was. I was talking to a connection of mine. He's Egyptian. Okay, we're sharing. In the morning, we were sharing a conversation. He's in Egypt, not just Egyptian. He lives in Egypt. Yeah. And I thought to myself, when I grew up when I was in grade school, high school, I only knew what was in my circle and what I saw on the 4 channels of TV, heard on the radio, or, I think going in grade school, I think I knew one guy from Korea and, one guy who was Indian. And it's like, okay, so... And that was the extent until I went to high school and it kind of broadened it. College broadened it. And now we get to the internet and I'm sitting here I'm having a chat with a friend from South Africa. I'm in Northern Virginia, different time zone, different continent away. Yeah. It just, our reach is global individually. So if you can reach global, you can impact globally. And it might not be like, if I give an idea to somebody, and they take that idea without even necessarily knowing it and go and plant that seed, you have an impact. And that's what I think we all need to kind of keep that in mind in the back of our head as we do things, that, we're really one big global community now that we all can impact one another positively. But at the same time, we can also do it negatively if we're not careful.
100%. All right, Ed. I think we'll take another quick break with a message from NGBN, and when we come back, we'll wrap things up. So yeah, trippers, here's a quick break from NGBN, and we'll be right back.
This is NGBN TV, a network for men and home to top experts, speakers, authors, and more. Streaming TV for men, created by men.
But why?
Why are we a network that inspires?
Educates, entertains, celebrates, and supports.
Men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, simply to save men's lives.
There is an epidemic in our community.
And it's taking men from us.
I'm talking about mental health and suicide.
But we have an answer, and it's streaming, live shows, sports, concerts, and more.
In a real way for men to lock shields.
We can't wait to launch this TV network for you and with you.
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 Join our movement at ngbn.tv, coming January 2024.
Welcome back, Trippers. Ed, I got a couple more questions for you before we wrap things up.
Absolutely. Go fire.
First of all, do you have any word of advice or wisdom that you'd like to share to the listeners? You never know who might hear this and who you might have an impact on. So
No, I'll just kind of recap what I said a few minutes ago. What I've kind of done here, and what we were to talk, kind of the theme that we've talked about today in this episode is that your next great thing could be one question, one call, one hello, one smile away. One, hey, I like your shirt. I have the same one. That next connection, it's literally that simple. Now, is it a guaranteed? No. But if you think about it in that kind of context, it will open you up and maybe, hopefully, make you more comfortable in making that first step. And my second thing is, it's the old adage, act locally, think globally. We have whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, whatever your social media is, we reach far and wide now with what we do and what we say. And I think we need to keep that in mind, because you can make a positive impact on people just by, smiling. I'm a big believer in if you can just smile as much as possible, it can be contagious. And you do as well. I mean, you smile a lot, which is good. It actually takes less muscles to smile.
Well, it's funny you say that, because as a kid, I'd be walking down the halls in my school and the teachers would always be telling me, Guillaume, smile a little. I was the kid that was always being told to smile more. So thank you. Now, I guess maybe it's rubbed off and I'm
it's worked.
more.
Yeah. Teachers, you did a good job because you're smiling now.
My second thing is, I'm trying to build a community of support, and I want to make sure that my guests are supported too. So is there anything that you need support with in either in your life or in your professional life? Because again, you never know who might hear this and might be able to give you some feedback or an answer. So
I actually, from the one thing that I'm really trying to work on right now is we want really decades to be kind of, sending a message. So if our next episode is going to be Tuesday, the 27th at 9:30.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 28th at 9:30 on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and NGBN. And if you could tune in, participate, it's a good time. We're trying to build our following, trying to see, we have a cast of characters on our show, and, great set of personalities, all a little bit different, all from different parts of the country. So it's kind of like what we were talking about. We have everybody's kind of getting to understand like different views, different age groups, and so on. So, and just, keep supporting us. If you support a show, you support NGBN, and that's kind of the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And NGBN is, it's targeted at men 40s, 50s, and 60s, but decades, we got people from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? So you got a wide range of opinions and views.
And that's the whole thing, is that we want, our 20-year-old is 20-year-old has a little bit different view maybe than our 70-year-old, or we also have we've had some women on the show. Jenna's been on our show, who's producing this, and that's a great aspect as well. Different age, and coming from being a female as opposed to a group of male, it brings a different dynamic, and it's fun to share. And we have to be open to these conversations.
Yeah.
And if not, we won't continue to move forward as a species, as a race. I think that's what gives us the ability to kind of exist and get better, is that we share ideas. We're open to ideas. Don't have to agree on the ideas, but we have to kind of stay, agree to disagree, toast a drink and move on and continue to work forward to things.
Yeah. So if people want more Sub60Ed, where can they find more of you?
I am on Instagram. What is it? EDMC_91 is one of them. You can look for Decades. Show is on Instagram as well. You can find me on LinkedIn, Ed McAndrew, and I am also on Facebook and Decades. And make sure to follow us on Decades and NGBN on Instagram and Facebook as well. So yeah, we can use all the support we can get.
Perfect.
And our show's interactive on Tuesday nights. I'm sorry. So we love to take comments. We'll pop them up, kind of like the different comments have been popping up. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
And Jenna's mom always Jenna's mom's comments at the end is just it's like the cherry on the top of the pie.
Does she comment on every show or?
Nah, actually funny. I'll give your mom a shout out, Jen. And she commented 2 shows ago for the first time, and I asked Jen, I said, "Who is that?" And she goes, "That's my mom." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And she said something just recently, but my mom also watches. My mom doesn't comment, but she'll text me later, and it's good to have family support. People watching the show, and not everybody likes to comment in public. This is not for everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, any last words before we wrap things up?
I just want to say thank you for having me on, Guy. It's been a pleasure. It's great, man. Our friendship building is awesome. I think you're doing is phenomenal. Your psychedelic lights in the back and your intro are great. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed working, being on here.
It's by having guests like you coming on that I can kind of test my methods and see what I like and don't like, and keep adjusting. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
If you ever want me back on, all you have to do is ask. I'm happy to be back on, and we can talk about. We're up almost on 49 minutes, and I've got many stories to share. If you ever want more stories.
Oh, 100%. We'll have to.
I've got some. Yeah, if you ever want me back on, just ask.
All right. Well, I'm sure I'll have you back on, Ed. Thank you so much for coming on. And Trippers, you guys can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And of course, you can always find the full catalog of Tripping Through Transformation episodes on ngbn.tv, as well as all of our other podcasts on our network, where we aim to educate, inspire, entertain men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.